You're live. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kuumba Kickback Freelancing Ain't Free panel. If you read it like Freelancing Ain't Free, you read it right. I'm Nicole from BBC and other random things. I'm really close. And I want everyone to just introduce yourself and say a little bit about like what you do. So we'll just go kind of in order. So we'll start with like Mel.
Oh, hi, I'm Mel. I'm a librarian, part-time writer, and the co-host of Nerds of Prey podcast.
Oh, I guess I'll go next. Hi, I'm Joy. I'm a brand marketer, freelance film and TV critic. I do not have as cool of a job as Mel as a librarian, but I do.
Brand marketer, though, come on.
Pretty cool.
Which direction did we want to go? I'll just go
think
because I'm
time.
already talking. I'm already talking. It's fine. I'm Connie. I am a writer at a children's magazine and managing editor of Black Girls Create. And that's probably it. Yeah, that's me.
I'm Ty. I'm a freelance writer, currently a contributing writer and editor for a website. And I also run a candle business. So I do a little bit of everything.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean. So these are all, as you know, as you can see, Black women and all writers, all who have different very levels of like freelance. So we wanted to talk to everyone today, to kind of find out like what you can do and what we can learn from them about freelancing and writing and getting your foot in the door. So I kind of wanted to ask, I think maybe what your entry into freelancing was in terms of like freelance writing. I'll like start with Ty with this one.
How I got into freelancing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've always been somebody that like dabbled around in writing and stuff. I wrote as a kid and like writing poetry and making up stories and stuff. And in 2012, I decided I wanted to try to dive into freelancing full time. Just wasn't quite ready for it. So I started doing some part-time stuff, wasn't making any money. I quit in 2013, came back to it in 2014. And then I've just been kind of building up some clips and moving ahead and everything since then.
Okay. And
Yeah, I've been in writing for 5 years. So I actually started writing as a freelance piece for Blavity because I hated my job, my day job. I worked in sales before I worked in brand marketing, and I was not a fan of it. So I used it as a creative outlet. From there, I started fellowship with Blavity, a social media fellowship, while working at my day job that I hated, and then also started writing for them nerd content. Loved the nerd content because it was my wheelhouse. Started writing with pretty much every other panelist here at the same outlet. We all really quit, and then I went freelancing. And so I started as a contributor for the Hollywood Reporter. I did that in 2018. Started doing coverage of film festivals at like TIFF and South by and Sundance. So yeah, it was a very non-linear path for me to freelancing, but I'm happy where it helped me net out in my career.
Mel?
Well, I started in, I think, 2015. And it was a random thing. Like, I contacted somebody from an outlet, who I won't say, on Twitter, and I wanted to write an article about the Wicked and Divine comic. And that was like my first thing. And from that blossomed into like writing for other things and covering TV shows and movies and doing all sorts of stuff.
I mean, I feel like at some point, because all of us have written for said outlet, and I feel like it's part of the journey. So we probably end up talking about it later. But, you know, whatever. I just feel like it is kind of part of the journey. Anyway, I also started writing for said currently unnamed outlet. I want to say I sent something in 2013 that I'd already put on my blog. It was just like to reshare and get like more views for it, about like why. Actually, it's actually really relevant this year about like why Black sitcoms aren't streaming anywhere, because in 2013 it was even less than it is now, and we're like finally getting like a surplus of these shows finally streaming somewhere. But in 2013 it was like zero. So I like wrote an article about that for my blog and then like submitted it to be reposted. But then I actually recently realized that before said website that, you know, formerly known as, I was contacted by Keith at the Nerds of Color, and he hit me up to like write reviews for like the DC TV verse. And so I did that for a long time. I, you know, dabbled into editing, which is fun because I get to other people do the hard work of writing and then I edit them, which is easier than writing. Yes. For me. And yeah, I just kept doing that and getting, you know, opportunities to write for other outlets and stuff, which is cool. I'm not great at pitching, so don't look to me for that advice. But I have gotten to write for other outlets, and you know, I managed to scam my way into a full-time writing job.
No scam.
Okay, it's not a scam. You definitely earned it. I guess I'll piggyback off of that. Pitching. This is one of those things that so I do also. I also have been freelance writing for the past few months, but I don't know a thing about pitching. I kind of got lucky that the timing worked out where like they needed coverage for something, and someone was like, "Oh, I know you like this. You want to maybe write," and it worked out for me. But I don't think that's the experience for everyone. So my question would be to, I guess, you know, it's to all of you guys who have experience with pitching. What kind of, I know Connie said she is not great at it, but I think there's value in knowing kind of like what your process is, even if you don't think you're great at it. So tell me what your process is for pitching. We're going to start with Connie since you love it so much.
I knew you were going to do that. So I think my problem with pitching is partially idea formulation, or perhaps just like seeing the value in my ideas. And then part of the problem is that when I think of an idea, part of the really important part of pitching is like knowing where it should go, which is a big part of that. And I don't always know where like my random ideas should go. And then you have to do the work of like tracking on the editor and then, you know, putting together the pitch, which I think all of us are probably still learning how to do properly. I think it's something that's always evolving, in terms of like just literally writing out what you want to write about and presenting it to an editor. But I think it's like just trying to figure out which of my random ideas would make sense for whichever outlet. I think an example that I can think of that might be helpful because it got not even rejected, it was never answered, is either last year or 2 years ago, Black Girls Create was at LeakyCon. We did a panel about like Harry Potter merchandise and the issue with like dark imagery. Like there's just a lot of issues with like Harry Potter merchandise and official merchandise versus fan created stuff and all that stuff. And there was a pitch going around, like a pitch call going around from someone at the New York Times. She was a Black woman. And I was like, this is like in her vertical. It was like fashion. I forget what else her vertical. It was like a lifestyle section kind of thing. So I pitched it and I had like several people look at what I was writing. I was like, this is the kind of idea. And I had several people look at what the pitch could be and like how to format it and rearrange it to like get the salient points up top and like make sure the subject line had like the headline I had in mind and things. And I mean, I sent it out and never heard back. So I don't know how much of that was like the idea sucking or the idea just not working for that outlet or the editor not reading it or the editor just not being interested. It's part of the pitching process is also just like not taking it 100% personally unless you are called to do so, because there are a million reasons why an editor might not get back to you or might not choose your your story. So it's like dealing with all of those parts of the process and all of those emotions.
Yeah.
So I'll ask Ty to kind of piggyback off of that, and because you've been on both sides of it now. So
Yeah.
what have you learned being on the on the other side that you think can help with people, like in terms of pitching, like what you look for and what stands out?
Well, first, you're looking at the whole concept of, did my idea suck? And most of the time, it does not. It's so many reasons why it could possibly get rejected. There could be that there's just no space for it in the editorial calendar.
Absolutely.
It could be that you have an outlet where they only have a certain number of pitches that they can accept a week. Maybe you got yours in on Thursday and they've already hit their allotment for the week. It could be that it just doesn't fit in with the content that they're doing, because you're always trying to shift and figure out what content's going to work. What's going to flow well. You got to get the clicks, you got to get the traffic in and stuff. And so they're always looking at those things in mind, and it just may not fit in. So that's why it's so important when you do pitch, send it to multiple outlets. Like, I know a lot of people won't say that, but I do it all the time or whatever. And you may just have to tailor that idea a bit to get it to fit in different places. But send it over to multiple outlets, because just because one person rejects you and says that it's not good or they don't answer at all, that doesn't mean that there's not a space or a place for it. And if it's an evergreen post, you can always put a pin in it and come back to it at a different time. So whereas it may not hit with this editor this month, you may try it again 2 months later and you may get a completely different response. So, you always, if you really feel passionate about an idea and you feel like it's unique, even if it doesn't hit right away and it's evergreen, hold on to it. As far as my personal pitching process, usually I'll take and just brainstorm a bunch of ideas, right? And then I'll take each one of those ideas and I'll see, how can I narrow that down from just being an idea or just being a thought and saying, well, I would like to write about this. How do I make it a story? How do I make it relatable to people? How do I bring something unique or revisit something? If you're doing like an anniversary type post, how do I revisit that in a way that's different? So one thing that I did recently, and I think I forgot to say this earlier, but I'm currently at Nerdist as a writer and an editor. So one post that I did recently is where I actually looked at the Final Destination franchise, and I broke down and decoded and spoke to numerologists about how the number 180 fits in there. So you're taking a franchise that's well known, you're looking at something that people have kind of discussed before, and then you're narrowing it down even more, bringing in experts and stuff if you need to. But the main thing about a pitch is that you just want to be clear. You want to be concise. You want to get your ideas up front. You want to make sure if they have any guidelines out there, read the guidelines. A lot of times, a lot of the questions and stuff that you have in there usually are, within the guidelines. If you're working with the editor, you get it accepted. You want to make sure that you understand everything. How many words? What resources do I need? Are you looking for a specific number of links and things within the post or whatever? What do you need from me, and what am I getting from you? Payment terms. How much are you paying? Is it, net 30, which is you're going to pay me in 30 days, net 60, net 90, which I wouldn't recommend, but, you want to look at all of that stuff. So, the key thing with pitching, again, is just making sure that you're taking that idea, narrowing it down, getting it really concise, coming up with a header if you can, because the header will help you even focus in your pitch even more, so that where you're not just having an idea or just a thought, you just want to make sure that you're getting down to like the bare bones of things. So that way an editor can look at that. You've got a couple of posts. This is my idea. This is why it resonates with readers. This is who I am. This is what I've done. And a couple of paragraphs, because usually that's about all the time that they really have.
Oh, okay. Very detailed answer. And I feel like we covered everything that I would have followed up with. But I see we have a few people in the chat who had questions. So I'll ask you this. Talia want to know, like, what is the best practice when you are shopping the same pitch for multiple publications? Like, what is best practice, or like what if you pitch to multiple organizations and then multiple people accept it? Like, how does that work?
It's been rare that I've had it where multiple people have accepted or whatever, but usually you taking the best offer that's on the table. It's all about who gets back to you the quickest and who has the best offer on the table. But usually I'll try to tier it out. So let's say you send a pitch out on a Monday, you follow up on a Thursday, you don't get a response back from that, then maybe that Friday or that following Monday, you kick it out to another post. I rarely send them out like all at the same time and 15 people at one time. And that's definitely not what I'm saying. And you also don't want to just copy paste the pitch. Of course, you want to go in and tailor things. make sure that you've got the right editor's name and the right publication's name, and just basic stuff. I mean, it seems common sense, but honestly, you see it all the time. I mean, I have 3 letters in my name, and
Like,
you wouldn't believe how many times I'm Tia in an email.
Please prove you've read the outlet.
Yeah.
Like, just
most of these outlets have pitching guides too that you can easily look up, as well as style guides. So please read the style and editorial voice of the outlet that you're pitching, so you know how to tailor the pitch so that you have a better success rate.
Okay. So for people who, like, again, for me, I kind of happen to know people who work for publications and that they already kind of were familiar with my voice and were like, I think you would be good fit for this. So I don't necessarily have that much pitching experience, but I also now I'm at the point where I definitely want to branch out more and like try to pitch and try to like actively put my words out there as opposed to somebody like, you should write this. Like, oh, maybe I should write this. So I guess how did you kind of overcome that personal barrier of like knowing that you have like your work has value? Like, how did you kind of address that nagging doubt that like people don't want to, like, how did you start pitching and how did you start actively looking for work and looking for places to publish? Like, what kind of was the process for you? I mean, I'll start with Joy with this.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I had to know early on was that pitching is trash. It just is. Like, it's a necessary trash, but it's utter garbage. So
facts only.
I hate it, but you got to do it.
You got to do it. Like, it's a necessary trash, but it's trash nonetheless. So like, once you get that in your spirit, it will hurt a lot less every time you pitch. To be serious, like, for me, it was finding a set amount of outlets, and I feel like Ty can expound on this too. A set amount of outlets that you feel comfortable writing with once you start getting into that circle. After pitching for them a couple of times, I'm lazy, so there are very rare times that I'm pitching to other outlets. I only really do it during the festival season when they sometimes need people on the ground, and that's how I usually wiggle my way in. And then from there, like during the off seasons when it's not film festival time, pitching them other pieces. But I stick to like a core set about 4 or 5 different outlets that I know their writing voice. I know how to write in their style kind of seamlessly because we've worked together for X amount of years. So that has always been the easy path for me. But I think, if you're trying to get into the space, I think it's understanding that there is a very good chance it's going to be a no. And as Ty mentioned earlier, it has nothing to do with your work and your voice. And there are other outlets. I also think, playing to your strengths. If you are a type of writer who does well in like the listicle editorial space, you might want to pick a Sci-Fi Wire or a Nerdist or a Collider. Like, knowing what outlets fit your natural writing style easier, I think also just sets you up better for success.
If you have a specific like place of expertise, let's say you used to work in the healthcare field, or like for me, I've actually worked in the financial advising field before, so I have licenses and all of that stuff like that. If you have specific skills like that, like don't be afraid to go to those niche publications, because a lot of times they may not have the big byline glitter, and everybody has these, the certain bylines they want to get and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you can also go to those places. A lot of times they'll work with you really well. A lot of times they'll pay well. You can get paid early, and they are always looking to build relationships with people who have that type of expertise. So if you're trying to freelance, even if you do still want to write about pop culture and entertainment and stuff, also look at the other things that you've done and see how can I take those experiences and the things that I've learned and translate that into potential freelance money.
Okay. And so I think you're like me, like we kind of write when we have a thought that's like, this really, I feel strongly about this, so I'm actually going to pursue it. What has to happen for you to feel like it's a worthwhile to pitch? Because I feel like for you, you are very, very, very passionate about like your fandoms, and you're very like well versed in them. And I'm always like, this could be an article. This could be an article. This could be an article. Like when we're talking like on Twitter, or like in our chats. And so I'm wondering for you, what does it take for something to like elevate to a level of like, I feel like this should be an article? Like, how do you get to that place?
I think a lot of it is just, it's a combination of your specific writing style and putting the marketer hat on. Also, what's trending, I think, is also a really interesting way to go about it too. if the common conversation is something along the lines about DC fandom and for example, arbitrarily, and you have an interesting take on the Batman that's very relevant to the social and digital conversation, that might be something that's, is time sensitive. So they might not sit on your pitch as long as they would if it was, say, an arbitrary piece about something that's not really, hot in the conversation right now. That's not to say you shouldn't write those things, but sometimes a lot of people have been able to get their entrance in the pitching spaces talking about something that's relevant in pop culture today. And so, being knowledgeable and, BGC is very knowledgeable about what's kind of going on in the nerd space, particularly like what is the conversation on Twitter and Instagram and things of that nature. Like that's also a very easy way to get into.
And also just making sure that like the outlets you're looking at haven't already covered the topic you're pitching. Because using Batman as an example, it's like the DC fandom weekend, whatever that is. So like if you do have an original idea, like everyone's going to be flooding all the outlets with all of the Batman content. Like there's just so much Batman content. So it's important to make sure that you're looking at what your idea is versus what other people are kind of talking about, like making sure that it has like a unique spin on what the conversation on the timeline is, but also making sure that the outlet hasn't like previously covered that idea, depending on what kind of outlet it is. And also related to that, make sure that you're not like pitching an outlet that does mostly news, because often they'll have like less room or no room for like a freelancer feature story. So trying to keep an eye out on what kind of outlet you're pitching is also important.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're trying to pitch like everything we need to know, that's not something that a freelancer would normally do. That's something you would normally assign out to a staffer. And also just knowing when to let certain things go. Still seeing pitches about people that are, mad about the last Star Wars movie. You gotta let it go. I mean, it goes back to what Joy was saying.
I'm still mad about it, but I'm not writing about it. Like,
but don't write about it. You can be mad about it, but it's kind of past the time to write about some of that stuff. It's just like what Joy said. I mean, and then once you establish a connection with someone, even if it's just doing a tiny piece or whatever, that opens up the door for you to do those long form pieces, to do those more thought provoking pieces. And if you find that you've had a good experience with an editor after you work with them, don't be afraid to reach out again and say, would you mind me contacting you directly if we're able to, if I want to pitch something in the future or whatever, and build those relationships. That's how you get your way in. That's how I got my way into a couple of like regular contributing things where I wasn't necessarily on staff, but they would tap me to do certain things, or they would allow me into like their Slack or their Trello or something, to be able to have that more direct line of pitching instead of me just kind of cold pitching people and going via email.
Okay. I lost the plot. Okay. Apparently audio issues. I don't know what that is, so bear with me. I'm trying to figure it out without like interrupting everything that's happening. So I wanted to know what kind of, like, I guess, portfolio or resume is that important to have, and if it is, like, what should that look like? And I want everybody to answer that, because I feel like that's one of those things that might be different for different publications and different experience. But so like I'll start with like Mel. Do you have a resume or portfolio, or how do you present your work, your writing work?
I don't really have a resume or portfolio. I just like, if I'm pitching, I will just include links to stuff that I've written before that I like, and just go from there. I mean, I'm trying to build the website now, but I don't really have anything like specifically together at the moment.
Yeah, I have a resume and portfolio, but when I pitch, I traditionally just send my links. But I also think it's what is your kind of end goal, and what is your strategy as a freelancer? If you being a freelancer is your goal to be a staff writer or a staff editor, for example, then yeah, you should probably have those set in place, right? If it's to move to the industry side, which is what I was very serious about doing, particularly in film and entertainment marketing, then yeah, you should probably have that as well. But ultimately, I think it's just based on like what is the overall objective of you freelancing, and then what is the path for that. So because of that, I have a resume and portfolio, but when I pitch, I just send links of articles I've written before.
Okay, Connie.
Yeah, I have a portfolio website. It just like used to be my blog, and then I've just like changed all sorts of things around. It's like the same place where that 2013 article that I wrote about, sitcom distribution on streaming sites. But I've changed the URL several times. And so it's just like a homepage for if anyone wants to find out more stuff, they can. So like, it is common practice that when you're pitching, you should include relevant links to articles that you've written. I mean, 90% of the time, it's just so people can see that you can put a sentence together in long form, because you'd be surprised. And then even then, it's not foolproof because those words have often been edited. So it's like maybe before that, you couldn't just string a sentence together. You just had a very nice editor. But all of that to say, so you send links that are relevant to whatever it is that you're writing as close as possible. It doesn't have to be exactly on brand for what it is, because you may not have written that before. And that's kind of the point, like you're trying to write this kind of new topic. But I like to have a website just because it actually just helps me have one place to have all my things. And honestly, I'm behind on updating it and like making sure that certain links are on certain pages, because I've done different kinds of writing. And so I don't remember all the things that I did or wrote. So having a portfolio site is really helpful to me to make sure that, I can pull it up really easily if I need it, because, but keep your links all together somewhere. Like somewhere you should have them together, even if it's not an official way, like in your notes, in your Google Keep somewhere, because you never know when you're going to need to like pull up something that is very specific, and you don't want to have to like be searching for the link. Like, I don't remember what website it was, or I don't remember what year it was. So I think that's why it's important to have even the most basic list of the things you've written before.
Okay.
I have a poorly managed Contently page that sometimes I put things up there and then sometimes I don't. I can't say that I've looked at that page since 2020 came, but it's there. There's some stuff there. I'm gonna get up there and add some stuff. Now that y'all have brought it up and making me kind of like, I have a website. Joy's like, I'm like, I need to get my website together. But I do have that. I do also have a writing resume that I keep kind of separate from like my traditional job resume. And that just kind of helps me keep up with like places that I've regularly contributed before, places that I've like staff written before and everything. And I can really detail out all of the stuff that I've done with them. And it has like a freelance portion on it where I try to keep up with most of the outlets that I've written for or collaborated with before. I also save PDFs of my favorite posts because a lot of stuff is on the website and you never know. I used to actually contribute for a website and we woke up one day and the website was gone. And I mean, thankfully we had the Wayback Machine back then, but I was able to go and, kind of grab some of my stuff or whatever. So yeah, keep your posts and then also print them out. Like, especially those first, if you're new to freelancing and you just started, you got your first couple of posts, print those out and save those, because you'll get to a point where you're not feeling good about what you're doing. You're not feeling confident and stuff. And that's your reminder that you've accomplished something and to keep going, even on the days where it seems tough and you feel like you haven't done anything. We've all done so much more than we give ourselves credit for. So give yourself credit for what you've done.
Joy, you want to talk about what you spent the weekend doing?
Oh yeah.
In that same vein.
Yeah, I literally a great segue. So Ty's absolutely right. So we write a lot of online articles. Very rarely do a lot of people get to write for print. I've been lucky enough to write for print, but majority of my portfolio has been online. And so I did something I was really proud of was doing an interview with Jonathan Majors, obviously from Last Black Man in San Francisco. White Boy Rick. Obviously he's the star of Lovecraft Country. And I got to interview him for Rotten Tomatoes. So I was like, I'm going to make this a print piece. So I went in Canva. You do it for free, by the way. Went in canva.com, turned the format of the online article as if it was print, and then got it printed at like my local print shop for like $4. And then I bought matte paper, like matte board from Michael's, and I bought like a long frame from Amazon. So I'm just going to frame it, and super, inexpensive. I'm probably paying at most, I don't know, like $50 for the entire process. So, that's just an example of something I'm proud of. Wasn't print, it was online, but I made it look like a print piece because it was work that I wanted to have framed.
That's nice. Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, and this is
that sounds cool.
So I do it all the time.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should all kind of like all of us who write for online or even anything that you put online is like it feels kind of not tangible. And so it's a reminder, and I would say that for writers and artists, like you make digital art, but you don't really necessarily do print. Still, just like for yourself, get that, put that on canvas, put that like print that out because I know for me, I kind of forget like I wrote this, and I'll look at my like by this author. I'm like, oh dang, that's like a good little amount of links there, but you kind of forget that like what you're doing. So that sounds like a really cool project and something that we all should probably try to take some versions. Maybe not that though, because that's real. That was real elaborate. Like
yeah, it's also quarantine. So like
like when I get to that level, I'm definitely gonna do the same thing though. Like y'all ain't gonna be able to tell me nothing. I'm telling y'all right now. So that's on
You're
record.
already at that level. You're already interviewing people and stuff.
Yeah, for a whole
print that joint out and put it in a frame.
Take it down during COVID, but you know what I mean.
Side note, Ty. I had a side note. Ty, you're also on Muck Rack, which automatically like tabulates your clicks if they can their automated system recognizes your name. So if you've written for a lot of places, which some people watching may have, also check Muck Rack because it's free for journalists to use to follow other journalists' work and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I Googled myself a few weeks ago, just out of curiosity.
Also Google yourself. Also do that. That is also important as a writer.
Yeah, Google your handle. Both of those.
Also, not all the time. Because sometimes you're not ready to receive your own work. Like, oh, fair. I wrote that with my own hands. So yeah, when you when you want to see what you like, you like, dang, I came so far.
That's me looking back at old stuff. I'll be like, maybe I don't want that out there. Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah, the process is understanding that you will grow and change, and practice is how you get better as a writer. So you have to start and be bad at it before you can be good at it.
Yeah, well, that's why I keep the old clips. I mean, because I can clearly see the growth and stuff like that there. And again, it's another way to be proud of yourself, be proud of what you're doing, what you're accomplishing.
Really good and important because we all forget to sit there and yeah, you did this, you did that, and being self-congratulatory over the work is something that we all kind of have to get used to, especially when we're writers. And I guess that leads me to my question, which is, when can you call yourself a writer? At what point for you? I'll do this. I'll make it a personal thing because I think that is a personal question. But for you, when did you feel like I could say I'm a writer, or are you still kind of? Is that something you're still hesitant about? I want to ask Mel because I think we were kind of dipping our toe in, and so I feel sometimes I write, but I don't say I'm a writer. And so for me, do you feel similar, Mel? Do you feel like
I feel similar. That's why I always say I'm a part-time writer.
Yeah, but I think that
occasionally.
Very confident to me. That feels very sometimes I'm a librarian, okay, and then sometimes I write. And I think
I'm always a librarian. I sometimes write.
No, you're not a librarian right now, but you call yourself a librarian. So if you're a writer and you're not writing right now, you're still a writer, Mel.
All right.
You're not librarian right now.
I could be. You don't know.
You're not let me
help you find this book.
So when did you feel okay, I'm a writer? What is there a comment or a piece that was published or just something where you're just I'm a writer, and it you didn't really feel there was no kind of qualifier for it anymore? She feels I'm a part-time writer. I feel I write sometimes. When did you feel for you, I'm a writer? And I'll start with Joy on that.
This year, I genuinely, seriously, I did not. I always classified myself as a critic. I never classified myself as a writer until I was starting to make the jump from the critic community to the the broader kind of broader industry, which I'm doing right now. I'm in the process of doing, where I was oh no shit, I did write, huh? It wasn't until I did the thought things. I've been a writer overall for 5 years. As a film and TV critic, I started really was more like 4 to 5 years, but I've been writing consistently or somewhat consistently for 5 years. But I think it's a bit of it is like a confidence thing. You don't want to feel like a poser in this community. And, you know, I can relate to Mel as somebody who has a day job and doesn't work in this space full time like Ty and Connie does. And so for me, it's like my bread and butter has always been brand marketing and been more on the corporate side. I always felt weird about calling myself or classifying myself as a writer, considering like I don't want to write full time at all. Like means to an end. Do not want to do this full time. So you know, that was always like kind of odd to me to classify myself as. Now that I'm like actually making the jump in the space that I want to make, I'm like, well, fuck it. Yeah, sure, I write. Like, yeah, I'm fine with doing it.
I don't know when this
writing for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right,
it's,
like,
it's an inner confidence thing, or like how you classify yourself, right? Because you yeah, but
right.
Yeah, I don't know when I made the switch because I know that aspiring writer was like in my bio for a long time, and it was probably just one of those Twitter conversations where like writers like more grown up than us are like, if you write at any point, you're a writer. And I just like finally took that to heart, I guess. And then I think now it's easier. It's actually the same problem, but like the level 2 is that I call myself a writer now because I work in journalism, but I don't think of myself as a journalist. And so like I say it sometimes, like I will call myself a journalist, but like I don't feel it the way that other journalists feel it. Because I didn't go to J school. I didn't intend to become a journalist. I wanted to write. And then it was like, oh, I work in a newspaper. Now I work in a magazine. Like I work in journalistic news, but it wasn't necessarily my purpose or my end goal. And not that it's bad that I'm here, because I've learned like so much about how to write better and how to be a journalist. And so I do call myself a journalist, but more often I call myself a writer because I just I'm still like almost to that next level yet.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I never refer to myself as a journalist. And I think part of it is because, you know, some people I've interacted with before, they have like, you know, journalism degrees and all of this stuff, or they do things that are, I guess, more like hard hitting type news, or, you know, however you want to frame that or whatever. I called myself a freelancer for a while. I would say also part-time freelance writer, but I really didn't start feeling like a writer until I got on staff with Bustle, because that was a position where I actually, you know, number one, even though I was out and I was doing freelance stuff and kind of freelancing around the hours I was doing with them, that was when I really started to expand and grow in a way that I needed to, because I was kind of in a stagnant and stuck space. So I started doing more interview type pieces. I started learning how to, you know, really critique and break things down, and how to, you know, do reviews, and just learning how to write about different types of things, and also writing about things that were out of my comfort level and out of my realm. So that was when I really started thinking, okay, yeah, like I can refer to myself as a writer now, but I still really don't see myself as a journalist, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around being an editor, because I do feel like I'm like a writer at heart. I like editing, and I've learned a lot since, you know, I've kind of come into the position that I am now. But I don't know, I feel like it's still going to take me a few years before I'm like, okay, I can actually see myself as like a legit, like real deal editor.
I think two of those things with that is, I hear an echo from myself. I think two of those things, Ty, for us is that like nerd and like entertainment journalism isn't seen as like this valid like juncture. It's definitely undervalued financially. I mean, all of media and journalism is, but I feel like one of the bottom tiers is like nerd and entertainment journalism, unless you're like at a trade, and even then like some of them freelance budgets. But so there's that. And then for the editing piece, I think for me, it's that like, there's very little proof of your editing. Like there's no real, like, I know like Nicole wrote an article that is still one of my favorites. And like, I didn't have to do a lot of work to it. She wrote about, you know, Thor in Avengers Endgame and how he's a fatty. And it's one of my favorite things that I've worked on, and one of my favorite things of Nicole's, but no one knows that I did that. Like I feel like I didn't do anything because Nicole brings good copy, but like where do I say like where do I put that? There's no like editor's resume really. It's just like, well,
I mean, for me, it's less about calling
it.
myself an editor and just like it's the inner joy that I feel. So like being at Nerdist now, I'm the only Black person on the editorial staff. And I've gotten a chance to work with a couple of really great freelancers lately. And one of the people, emailed me back and was like, wow, I never thought I would see my name on that website. And I'm so glad I was able to work with you and that you had kind of an innate understanding of what I was trying to say, what I was trying to convey, helping me like dig deeper into the story and really find like and refine the focus of my idea. And like for me, that's been like the most just enriching and wonderful part of it. So it almost feels like I've kind of come full circle because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that. And to be a freelancer, trying to get somebody to give you a chance and let you get your foot in the door, and knowing that you have good ideas, and knowing that you have, the talent to be able to do things, but you're just trying to figure out how to get there. And so now being able to be a person that can open some of those doors or whatever, it's fantastic. Like I love it so much.
You'll be really from you short. No, so I kind of wanted to talk about what have been. This is a two-part question because I want to know what has been one of your best or most positive experiences in freelancing, and I kind of think I know the answer to the opposite, which is like what has been some of your one of your worst or like experiences. Like you don't have to be specific about a publication, but just kind of like what kind of. Is there like a situation or something that happened where you kind of was like, is this worth it? Is this, should I keep doing this? So I kind of want to know both sides of it. So I guess we'll just start with like the negative on the positive. So like,
I can go. Yeah, I can go. Yeah.
A little bit about it.
So this is one of the bad kinds, and it's also just like steeped in irony. So before I became a full-time writer at the Daily News, there was a pitch call going around from a food magazine, a food website, and I had an idea and a pitch, and I sent it in. And because I haven't taken any J school classes, I haven't done any journalism before, and the ask was more journalistic than I knew and predicted, and had no idea what I was doing. So I wrote a draft and sent it to the editor, and she was like, "This looks good. Can you get an interview with X and Z?" And I was like, can I? Like, how does that work? I literally had no idea how to even start to approach that. I tried to put a call out on Twitter, but the asks that I was looking for aren't really Twitter asks really. And so I had no idea how to move forward with this. I wrote a draft. I just needed 2 more voices in the story. What did I do? I ghosted that lady. I was like, why? I just had no idea what to do. And the longer it sit in my inbox, and the worse I was having success finding anything, I was just like, I don't know how to reply to this or answer this or be like, I don't know what to do. And I didn't ask questions like you should. Please ask questions, because she probably could have helped me out. But I was scared and didn't know what to do. So I just ghosted her. I can never work for that outlet. But the supreme irony, as I found out later when I was Googling, is that I wrote, this happened in August or September of 2016. And I think it was August of 2016. And guess where I got hired at? An entire newspaper, nearly 100-year-old newspaper, that September. And then I was like, oh, I have to do this for real now. Okay. But that's what I'm saying about I've learned a lot of how to do that. So if I were in the same position now, I'd know I could go to this website to find sources for this particular topic. There are websites for that kind of thing, because journalists, honestly, I think a lot of people think that we have some sort of inner secret tools that we can use, and maybe there's 1 or 2, but not everybody has access to them or uses them. So we're trying to find out information the same way you are, Googling and just kind of knowing where publicists live and how to reverse engineer someone's email or whatever. We don't have secret journalism tools that our company pays for. So there are websites for like finding sources. I can't recall them right now, but if your piece would be benefited by an interview, there are places you can go beyond like, hey, Twitter, help a girl out, that I didn't know about before. So that was a huge lesson that I learned. And 4 years later, I'm still like, wow, I did that. And now I'm literally doing that as a day job. Crazy.
Wow.
Joy didn't even know what to say. She was like, you reverse
I don't
ghost her. We don't want us to get ghosted. Like,
I don't think I've told that story this publicly before. 4 years, I'm healing.
Well, first off, keep healing, because if you don't think I'm gonna make fun of you offline about
Wow.
I am. Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. You know me personally. It's happening. No, you know, one of the worst things I think in the industry in general, I hate when outlets and publications are doing like call to actions for writers of color to pitch for their site, and then their output in terms of that call to action is no person of color. And that has always just been a pet peeve for me personally. It's just like, don't stop playing on my phone. Like, stop wasting our time if you're not actually going to do the work to make sure that writers from marginalized communities are actually writing at your large publication. And I think ultimately that is, as all of us, we started at a smaller publication and have worked our ways up in different areas within our career. And so, you know, I do hold the value of starting small and moving up and moving bigger to heart. But like, everybody wants their big break. Everybody wants to have like that trade publication or, you know, IndieWire or Polygon or other outlets on their resume, because we do know the value of saying I've written for Polygon in a pitch email. So bringing it full circle. But yeah, stop playing on, you know, writers of color's phones. Like, don't ask for pitches and you're not going to accept them. So just don't put that call to action out on Twitter.
And we are here outside of Black History Month, and we can write about other things besides race and, you know, the same things you want to see over and over and over again. Like, I mean, there are people out there that are gaming experts. There are people out there that are experts in comics. There are people out there that are experts in technology and brand building and so many other things you can do. Like, don't just, you know, people are in my inbox every February. It never fails. People are in my inbox about to tear it down. Where y'all at the rest of the year? Right. So where are you at? Like, that's annoying.
1 month.
Right.
Wow. That, I guess I did not bring up, payment or like being paid. And I guess my question was like, for the people who are still actively like freelancing, because I know that like Ty, obviously you're like a fish, so you're not necessarily having to chase down those checks the same way. But
freelance though.
Your advice, what have you learned about? Yeah, what is your advice for like getting paid and like making sure that you know that those invoices get paid and that people are like respectful of your like the fact that you provided this service, I've written this thing. How do you make sure to like hold people accountable for that? And do you have any like really negative experiences like that you had to like learn a hard lesson from, or how does that work? I will making faces over there, so I don't know. I feel like you ready to answer, Connie, so go ahead.
No, I'm terrible about writing for outlets, writing for outlets that I actually pay you, because I don't have the pitching hustle that I should have. So I've had relatively decent experiences. I mean, a major outlet from a television producer who, you know, her company has a lot of money. They pay me a little late, but you know, I recommend writing for Gizmodo/IO9 because they pay super on time. It was like the week that I wrote the article, and that is intensely rare. So
yeah, I would just say, like, look, you know, the elephant in the room is we've all worked for a small publication at the same time with each other that didn't pay nothing. So I would say this: if you're going to write for a site and you're starting off in your career and you can afford to write for free, not that it's okay, not that it should be allowed, but recognizing that a lot of sites who are owned by people of color because of systemic racism and lack of equity and money, can't necessarily pay their writers the way they want to, make that call for yourself. I'm not sitting here and saying that like you should not do it. I'm not sitting here and saying that you should do it. I think based on where your trajectory is, what your strategy is for you as a freelancer, what you want your end game to be, make that call. There's nothing wrong, even if it's a Black publication, since we're all Black women on the call, saying like, you know what, I want money. And that's fair.
Right.
That's super fair. But, you know, be honest with yourself about that and don't just say yes because it is a Black publication. Just putting that out there, right?
Right.
You know, you'd be surprised. I've written for a trade publication and they pay the same amount as a lot of these smaller outlets. So also don't think that the size and scale of the org doesn't mean that you're going to be making more money. That is not true either. So be mindful of the pay. You know, Study Hall and a lot of other great online outlets, it gets very transparent within the writer circles of how much a lot of these outlets pay. I would encourage people to do their research on the type of outlets they want to go to, talk to other editors and other writers who have written for them as freelancers about how much they pay. You know, reach out to any of us. You know, I've written for a bunch of places. So has Ty, so has Connie, so has Mel. And we've all written for a variety of different places. So we have no problem being transparent about how much you get paid. Connie said it earlier, the entire industry is extremely undervalued. So don't come in here into the industry thinking it's a cash grab, because it's not in any capacity. And if that's your overall objective, you are going to get disappointed day one. So I want to be very transparent about that. You will not make good money in this space at all. But if you're doing it for the portfolio building, if you're doing it for the love of the work and doing it for you having creative outlet to express your point of view and bring that to the broader industry, then yeah, sure, be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like what Joy was saying. I mean, what is your end goal? You know, do you want to just write for, fun and to get your voice out there and to be heard and stuff? And in that case, there are a lot of places and a lot of resources and outlets and stuff for you to be able to do that. But if you're trying to build a sustainable freelance career, you're definitely going to have to mix it up. Even if you're somebody that's interested in the pop culture, entertainment, journalism space. So that's why, it's so important to use the resources that are out there, not just people resources, but Black Freelance is actually a really, really great website and podcast hub for you to be able to use. I typically don't recommend a lot of stuff with, that has a cost attached to it, because we're all trying to save your coins and stuff, but $7 a month and it's like super, super worth it, because they have freelance jobs across many, many different industries. And there's a lot of things that I've done that doesn't have a byline attached to it or whatever. And that tends to be the better paying work, the things that I've done that are maybe short write-ups for someone, or maybe, working with someone to refine a piece or something, or some of the things that I've done in the financial thing. But, again, can't stress it enough, that if you're coming in and you're solely trying to stay within this industry, there's only but so much money to be made. Things can be very, very unstable. So even somebody that has a staffer position or something, you may feel like you have a certain amount of stability there. It can be there one day and gone the next. And so that's why it's so important. Even with me now, I still freelance. So that way I'm not necessarily putting all of my eggs in one proverbial basket. And just making sure you build community too, especially as Black women in the industry, where there's still so much gatekeeping going on. There's still a lot of places that claim and purport that they want diversity, but you pull up their website and the masthead says otherwise. And the freelance pool that they have there says otherwise. We have to be able to lean and depend on each other, knowing people's different strengths and things. Joy helped me out one time. She actually was with a publication and they asked her to do a piece about Doctor Who. And she was like, well, I'm not trying to do that. She was like, that's not my brand, but I know somebody that can do it. But there are a lot of people that wouldn't open up that door to be able to do that. And it's so important, especially once you get yourself established and you've built relationships, to bring other people along the way if they're serious and if there's somebody that you can actually legitimately vet for.
Yeah, it costs zero.
Nothing. Yeah, and if you see something out there, even if it's not for you, because there are plenty of things that are, not in my lane, but I see the opportunity out there, and I know that folks like Mel are Star Wars fans or whatever. I like Star Wars, but I don't have the in-depth knowledge that she does. So if I see somebody doing a call for pitches out there, I'm going to retweet that out there, or I may even send that to her directly and say, hey, this is not for me, but this could be for you or whatever. That's how we get our foot into different doors. that's how we build sustainability and stuff. That's how we continue to create spaces and to be able to get people who wish to get the paid work that they want to get.
Sure.
And I just wanted to add, like, if you are expecting payment and you haven't gotten it, just be polite, but stay on top of that. Stay on top of it. Don't just let it go. Just keep like emailing them, but just be polite about it.
You got to stay down these people back sometimes. It's
Then
ridiculous.
you gotta be a stereotype if they keep playing with your money.
For sure.
That's a conversation for another day. So I guess we have about 5 minutes, so I'll say like a kind of a final wrap up question. And it's just during COVID, nobody can go anywhere. Everybody's trying to have to figure out like how to work from home. So my thing is, what is the way? And this is kind of pulling in from Alex's question, which is like, what's one writer ritual that you love? And so I guess the way to wrap that up is like, how have you made your like writing space or your like creative space in like a place you're kind of stuck in for the most part? Like, what do you do? How does your desk look? Do you have a separate space? Do you have a separate room? Like, how are you like being productive and like writing and staying creative in the space that is like also kind of like a jail? Everybody.
Before I even was pre-COVID, I would just write in my room, which I realized now was a terrible practice. But due to COVID, I now have a separate workstation in my living room for when I do work for my day job. So once it's 5:30, put pencils down, and I'm grabbing my laptop to do my freelance work. Now I work in that space. I'm also a big chill wave fan. I listen to a lot of chill wave playlists when I write, because it doesn't have it's very lighter in tone and doesn't have any lyrics, so it helps me zone out a little bit when I'm writing.
But lo-fi. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the lo-fi for you is the chill wave. I just love the the calming, wavy energy that comes with it. Some of them have lyrics, some of them don't. But find a playlist that works for you to help you zone out to write.
Yeah, lo-fi. I can't really listen to things with lyrics that I know. But also there are certain types of music where it's like I would want to like be paying attention at least more than when I'm writing. So I'll do a lo-fi playlist. My 13-year-old cousin is more musically cool than I am, so she's also introduced me to city pop, which is sort of like Japanese inspired and like obviously poppy urban beats and stuff like that. So those things are helpful when writing because I can't do lyrics. I don't need music to write necessarily, but if I do want some on, that's probably the one consistent thing. I don't think I have like a consistent even that's not consistent. I don't have a consistent method of how I write except like doc.new. Just open a new Google document or my Google Keep. Like those are the two main places that I like work. That's it, I think.
Yeah, I just pull up my phone, like doc, and that's it. Wherever I'm at, which is really not good for productivity. Because then I'm like, oh, there's Netflix, so there's a doc open on my phone, and I'm like, I want to watch TV. So it's I need to work on like putting like a separate workspace. Like I technically have one, but I don't use it at all. So, Ty and Mel.
That's actually how I write a lot too. I write on my phone while I'm walking my dog. I don't know why, but like it just puts me in like in a Zen mode, and I can just focus and write and just like write and hold the leash and like. Somehow I don't know how it works for me.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I've got like my desk has a bunch of my favorite stuff on it. So I treat Martha Jones from Doctor Who like she's family. So I actually have a sketch that somebody did for me that means a lot to me. I have that framed and like hung up above my desk. I've got a few TARDISes up there. I have like some of my Funko people there. I'll keep a couple of candles there. I like to listen to some lo-fi music, or either I'll do a lot of jazz and stuff too. It just kind of depends, or ambient sound. It depends on what I'm writing and how much I need to focus. Sometimes if I've got to focus, really, I need it to be like completely quiet. But yeah, I mean, that's just really about it. I've gotten so much better. I used to be terrible, especially when I worked in the financial advising industry, because it was long days and we moved so fast. I never ate breakfast. But now I make it a habit and a routine to sit down and actually have breakfast and like gather my head and my thoughts and stuff. And usually I'll sit down and eat breakfast with my kids. And then I'll kind of, get them set up for their day and the things that they do. And then I can just kind of focus on my day. But it's about creating a space that feels good, that has peace, that surrounds you with stuff that makes you feel good.
Okay. All right. Really quick, where can people find you? In a circle, starting with Nell.
I am Jane_non on Twitter.
I'm Jump for Joy in the little handle right here. So yeah.
I am Ty Gooden. Should have put my handle there, but I mean, it's literally just like how my name is spelled on Twitter, and that's probably the best place to be able to find me.
Yeah, Constar24, almost everywhere, but all things kind of go through Twitter.
Constar, and I'm Nicole, your specimen at Twitter, and it's been great talking to you, and yeah, everyone have a good day, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.